3 years ago, I inherited a stunning 15-acre property from my grandfather, a cherished place we always called Willow Lake. Tucked deep in the forest, the land boasted a spring-fed lake so clear it mirrored the sky. Our family had owned it since the 1950s, and it held countless childhood memories, especially the ones spent fishing with my grandfather on the dock he built by hand back in the 60s. The early morning mist still haunted me in the best way. As a freelance graphic designer, the quietude of Willow Lake was my peace, even though the property taxes were a burden. I safeguarded the original deeds and survey maps in a fireproof safe, a symbol of what this land meant to our family. The only nearby development was a new subdivision filled with identical beige homes, governed by a homeowners association obsessed with conformity. I kept things cordial, offering the occasional wave, especially to their president, Carla, a former real estate agent known for her domineering attitude. She never caused trouble. That is, until 2 weeks ago. I'd been away on an intense out-of-state branding project, 2 weeks of high-stress meetings and long hours. The money was good, but I missed Willow Lake deeply. When I returned last Tuesday, I didn't even unpack. I went straight toward the lake, hungry for its calm. As I passed through the pines, something unfamiliar struck my ears, laughter and conversation coming from my shore. At first, I figured a few kids had wandered over, which was unusual but not unheard of. But when I pushed through the trees, I stopped in my tracks. A huge wooden deck now stretched across my favorite shoreline, covered with picnic tables and a bold sign, Community Fishing Lodge and Pier. My grandfather's dock? Gone. In its place stood a gaudy, commercial-looking pier poking out into the water. The wildflowers and native plants were replaced with gravel. A path now led directly back to the development. Trash littered the area, beer cans, fast food wrappers, and a new garbage bin added insult. 6 people lounged on the pier, one of them a man in his 30s wearing high-end fishing gear. My hand shook as I walked closer. "Excuse me," I said, my voice strained. "This is private property. You need to leave." The man laughed, telling me Carla had secured the land for community use. He called my part of the lake an eyesore. They generously upgraded. A woman piped up, claiming water access was a public right, and told me to take it up with the HOA. Furious, I left and called Carla immediately. Her smugness over the phone made my skin crawl. She claimed that county plat maps showed the shoreline as public and waved off my deed, even threatening to file a complaint if I kept harassing her people. She hung up before I could say another word. I was furious, but I knew rage wouldn't fix this. I cleared my kitchen table and laid out every property document I had. My deed left no room for doubt. My land extended far beyond where they'd built that lodge. 2 days later, I found an envelope under my door. It was a cease and desist letter from the HOA's attorney, accusing me of defaming their community recreation area. That was it. I hired a property attorney named Mark. He reviewed my documents and confirmed that the entire structure was illegally built on my land. He recommended a new GPS survey to shut down any argument. The surveyor, thorough and professional, marked my boundaries with bright orange stakes every 10 feet. Sure enough, the pier, lodge, and much of the gravel path fell clearly within my property. With the notarized survey in hand, I called the police's non-emergency line and reported trespassing and illegal construction. Officer Daniels arrived quickly. After reviewing my paperwork, we walked down to the lake together. Carla and 2 HOA board members were there fishing. Carla approached, dismissive, and tried to show Daniels a blurry county map on her phone. I stayed calm and presented my deed and the professional survey, pointing to the stakes. Daniels' tone changed. He told Carla this was no longer a civil issue. She was trespassing and could face arrest if she didn't leave. Her arrogant demeanor crumbled into nervous excuses about speaking to her lawyer. But within minutes, she and her group packed up and left, throwing me dirty looks like I was the one out of line. Mark followed up by sending a formal demand letter to the HOA's lawyer. They were given 30 days to dismantle the structure, pier, and gravel path and to restore the shoreline with native vegetation, at their own expense. If they failed to comply, we'd hire our own contractors and sue them for the full cost, damages, and legal fees. Within 2 days, their lawyer backed down, admitting fault. The removal and restoration work cost close to $40,000, pushing the HOA to issue an $800 special assessment per household. The next HOA meeting was utter bedlam. Furious residents waived bills and demanded explanations. Carla tried to shift blame onto me, but the survey records made it clear. This mess was hers. She and 2 other board members were voted out in a landslide. I wasn't finished. While crews tore down the illegal lodge, I commissioned an 8-foot cedar fence along the true boundary. At the former lodge entrance I mounted a carved sign. Willow Lake, private property, no trespassing. The best part? That fence and restoration were paid for by the very HOA that overstepped. As the seasons changed, the repaired shoreline came alive again with ferns and wildflowers, and I rebuilt my grandfather's dock with old timber to match its former soul. 6 months later the fallout worsened. Carla, humiliated and pressured, sold her house at a $30,000 loss. Buyers had caught wind of the HOA's scandals and wanted no part. With shady spending exposed, like a $60,000 landscaping project never properly approved, the HOA's finances tanked. Dues were raised by 40%, pushing more homeowners to sell. A local paper picked up the story under the headline "When HOAs Cross the Line," highlighting the abuse of power, and unexpectedly giving my freelance business a boost from the publicity. Meanwhile, Sarah was mourning a different kind of loss. Her husband Ethan had died suddenly of a stroke just a month earlier. After 5 years together and nearing IVF, their dreams of starting a family were torn apart. Adding to her grief was Ethan's high school friend Lisa, who had always hovered too close, her supposed friendship laced with longing. Ethan had set clear boundaries in life, but after his death, Lisa seized an opportunity. Despite knowing Sarah was planning a memorial, Lisa sent an email to 60 people, including Ethan's family, announcing her own service in his hometown. She painted it as the real one, accusing Sarah of mishandling the arrangements. Worse, she spread damaging lies, that Ethan had planned to leave Sarah, blaming infertility, and that he had asked Lisa to carry his child. When Sarah confronted her, Lisa deflected, accusing her of delaying Ethan's farewell. Then Lisa made her service public on Facebook, blocked Sarah, and claimed hers was the official event. Calls and messages flooded in, exhausting Sarah even more. She finally called Lisa, demanding an explanation. Lisa coldly insisted Ethan would have wanted this, and uninvited Sarah altogether. But Sarah's calm reply, that she had already said goodbye, holding Ethan as he slipped away, left Lisa speechless. Desperate, Sarah reached out to the chapel hosting Lisa's event. The pastor, unaware of the deception, canceled Lisa's booking after learning the truth. Both memorials were held, each honoring Ethan in its own way. Lisa showed up to hers but left quietly after being confronted. Though Sarah found comfort in her final goodbye, Lisa's betrayal left a lingering bitterness, sparking hard conversations about mourning, control, and dignity. Then there's Emma. Her story wasn't about loss, but a sting of pride and quiet revenge. At nearly 30, she'd finally bought a brand new car after years of saving. It was a big moment. But her friend Rachel, always dismissive of Emma's aging car, barely acknowledged the new one. Emma noticed the snub, and didn't forget it. She quietly promised herself she'd return the favor if Rachel ever got a new ride. 2 months later, fate intervened. Rachel's car was totaled by a drunk driver. She replaced it with a sleek, top-of-the-line model. When she pulled up to show it off, Emma played it cool, barely reacting. At a pool party where others admired it, Emma simply walked inside. On the way home, as Rachel listed off features, Emma replied with a flat, "Mine's better," and a dry, "That's nice." Rachel was clearly annoyed. What seemed like a small payback ignited a deeper conflict. Some in their friend group sided with Emma, calling it justified after years of subtle jabs. Others saw it as childish and unnecessary. The argument over a car became something more. A clash over pride, loyalty, and long-held frustrations. In each of these stories, from a landowner defending his rights, to a grieving widow reclaiming truth, to a woman subtly striking back at a longtime friend, the common thread is a stand taken. Whether it was a boundary reasserted with timber and wildflowers, a legacy guarded against lies, or a cold shoulder offered in reply to old wounds, these battles left their mark. And though the victories came with a price, they also carved out dignity, justice, and the satisfaction of not letting things slide.